Okay, good evening or good morning, depending on when you're having a class. And I am Dorothy Stewart, and we have with us, or with me, Jake Farrell. And this lab is the Mineral Identification Lab. Students are going to be given an unfamiliar mineral, and they have to use a deductive process to figure out what mineral they have. This has been because of an established key that you will have. They're going to be looking at and moving through the different properties of that mineral and discovering what that is, and then finally identifying what the mineral is. They'll have before them gloves and goggles. They need a streak plate, the hydrochloric acid. You need a file.
Here's a file. Oh, here's
a
our file.
penny, the magnet, and a nail. And Jake is going to explain what it is that needs to be done and walk you through this lab.
And actually,
Okay.
this one right here, this is a dark streak
Different.
plate. So we have two streak plates. We have a light one and a dark one, just in case if the streak is white. So now, one thing that's really important about this lab is that the students, they might not recognize whenever they're getting a certain result, and so there's going to be a lot of questions on this one. So for example, as the students start doing the hardness test and so forth, they might be like, oh, I don't know if this is scraping off or not. And so you might want to preload them with some examples of, hey, this is how you can tell if something is streaking off, or just go and just monitor, be like, oh yes, that's definitely scraping off. So I would encourage you, any mineral that you are deciding to use, I would go ahead and do all the tests yourself so that you know what it looks like, and then give them to the students so that whenever you see it, you'll be able to recognize it and let the students know. The mineral that we happen to be using today is graphite. Now on our lab sheet that you'll print off, it gives them the supply list, and then also it gives them, a little bit of safety directions, and then it tells them about each of the tests. So it talks about color, streak, hardness, and all that, and then it tells them how to just go through the test very briefly. It gives them other properties such as smell, acid test, and magnet test that they can do. And then it gives them some questions to answer. It gives them their chart. This one's really important. So this is a chart of known minerals. And so on this chart of known minerals, they're going to take what they have discovered. They're going to record on that very last sheet. They put down everything that they've discovered and they record it down. And then they compare it to the known minerals to find out which mineral they have. It's also important to do multiple tests, not just a single test, because a lot of these minerals have the same properties as other minerals. And so we're going to start off by we're going to start with color. So Dorothy, what color would you say that? Not the streak test, just the color of the mineral itself.
Oh, the color of the mineral itself.
Yeah.
I'll say pewter.
Pewter?
Or dark gray.
Okay, I'm a guy, so I'm gonna go with gray, because I don't know what pewter is. But okay, so pewter or gray, good. Okay, then go ahead and do the streak test.
Okay. And so on the edge of the white streak plate, I see the same color.
Okay,
Okay.
so it's gray as well.
Yes.
So then I'm recording on here. So the mineral itself is a gray color, its streak is also gray. And then let's do the heft. Now with heft, it's light, medium, or heavy. It's really a good idea to have students compare this mineral to other minerals that they have. And so it's nice to have a box set of minerals out that they compare it to. Because if you just take a single mineral by yourself, you're like, I don't know.
Lightweight.
Yeah. So if you were to feel it, it might feel light, but it's also really small. So this could be lead, but it's so small that it's really kind of difficult to tell. So if you have comparison, it will help them understand better that this actually is pretty light compared to other minerals at the same size. And so its heft is light. Cleavage or fracture. So as you look at this for the cleavage or fracture, this is where the students are going to have probably a lot of questions again. And once again, you want to refer them back to their package, and you would say, okay, on cleavage or fracture, is it flat? Does it, you want to look at those terms. Does it break in an orderly fashion? Now you can tell, you don't want them necessarily breaking the minerals. You want them to examine this as it's already broken. This has an irregular cleavage, and they can just write irregular on there. It doesn't break like necessarily just nice and neat along planes. I mean, you can kind of tell there's some, maybe a little bit, but overall I would say irregular, and go from there. And I'm just going along this sheet, on my answer sheet, I'm just going along and I'm just trying to figure it out. Another test, another really good one is the hardness test. The hardness test, you're gonna start off going soft to hard. So you start off using your fingernail, then you go to a penny, then you go to the nail or your file.
My estimation is not.
Now look at your fingernail, and is there any scrapings on your fingernail?
Let me try the other.
Yeah.
Slightly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Slightly.
so if it's able to scrape off on your fingernail, so you can barely see it, it's really hard, you have to look closely. But so Dorothy just started scraping with her fingernail, and there was just a little bit of shavings. Now that's enough. You don't have to. It's not like it has to break apart with your fingernail for this to be that softness. If anything comes off with the fingernail, and your fingernail hasn't broke, then that means that it is softer than your fingernail. And on the sheet, once again, in their lab, they're gonna have to refer to the lab a lot. A fingernail has a rating of 1 or 2 hardness. And so we don't know exactly which one it is. So on our hardness, we're gonna put 1 to 2. We could go on, we don't need to do any other hardness tests, but if it did come off with our fingernail, then the next one would be the penny, then the nail, and then the file. Also, we wanna look at its luster. Its luster is how light reflects off of it, pretty much. And so this one, it looks shiny.
Looks shiny, yes.
So that would be metallic luster. If it was less shiny, if it was more of a matte, then you put non-metallic. But this has a metallic luster. And so then I record all that. Now I gotta look at the other properties. So the other properties is smell. So there's not like, do you smell anything? I've got bad sinuses, so I don't know if I'd smell anything unless it's super, super strong.
So then it's a good idea not to have hand lotion on, because they might say, okay, yeah, but really that's not the smell of the metal.
And then we have our magnet. We can see if it's magnetic. It's not magnetic, and we know our magnet's strong enough because it's been picking up nails and everything. And then our hydrochloric acid test. Now the hydrochloric acid, this isn't like super strong hydrochloric acid. It's not like if it gets on their skin, they're gonna melt like in Aliens or anything like that. They just need to make sure that they wash their hands afterwards. The biggest safety concern is really with their eyes. So I have them put on gloves just because that's a smart thing to do, and gloves are cheap. But the biggest safety concern, like I said, is with their eyes. So I'm gonna put on some goggles.
And I'm gonna step back.
I'm gonna take my mineral, and just using my dropper, I squeeze out the bulb first, take in just a little bit. That's way too much, but all I need is a drop. I don't need a lot. So I'm gonna put a drop or 2 on this. And I should see some bubbling action. And there's absolutely no bubbling action whatsoever on this. It's just sitting there like a drop of water. And so I would close that up. And then while I have all my safety gear on, I would go ahead and clean up. I would dab off the rest of that hydrochloric acid. I would dispose of the hydrochloric acid in here. I don't return it back in here because if this has been contaminated, then you contaminate all this. So I would dispose of my hydrochloric acid into our chemical container and then dispose of that according to our safety guidelines at the lab. And that's how you would identify the mineral. So after they look at all this, they would take a look at all of their, they would take this lab sheet out, and I would just have them tear it off, everything that they wrote down, and then they would compare it to the lab sheet here, to their guide sheet here that has all the known minerals, and they would see that, maybe they recorded something wrong, but they should have most of this. Most of it should be similar to what they recorded. And then that's their mineral. And that's pretty much it.